Hi, this is Satiris Balsakaropoulos, and today I'm just going to do the first of three different book reviews for books which I really found useful and I thought were very interesting. The first book is a book by Robert Kiyosaki. It's called Guide to Becoming Rich Without Cutting Up Your Credit Cards. And what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to take out, a small, like a small chapter of the book, which I found quite useful. I thought was quite useful and thought it was a very good, some very good stuff that people should really realise and know. Basically, it's basically about paying the price. Okay, so one of the things Robert Kiyosaki always says is that, for everything you do or don't do, that there is a price. People assume if they don't do something that, they won't have to pay the price, but normally there's a price for not paying the price, which is quite interesting. So that's what I found from reading this anyway. And the title of the paragraph I'm at is just called "Money is the Reward for Paying the Price." Rich Dad would also say, ask anyone who is rich, famous or successful, and I'm sure they will tell you that they had and have had personal challenges and demons to face every day along the way. Son, there's no free lunch. My challenge was that I had no education and no money when I started out. I also had a family to feed when my father died. I was 13 years old when I was given that challenge, and there were even greater challenges to come. Yet I managed to pay the price, and in the end I achieved great wealth. In hindsight, money was my reward for paying the price. The price of security. Over the years, Rich Dad made sure his son Mike and I were always aware of the price of something. When my dad, the man I called my poor dad, advised me to find a safe, secure job, Rich Dad's reply was, remember, that is the price for security. When I asked him what the price was, he answered, for most people, the price of security is personal freedom. And without freedom, many people spend their lives working for money rather than living out their dreams. To me, to live life without achieving my dreams is much too high a price to pay for security. He also made his usual comment on taxes by saying, people who seek security over freedom pay more in taxes. That is why people who have safe, secure jobs pay more in taxes than people who own the business that provides the jobs. I spent a few days thinking about the comment, letting the magnitude of the idea sink in. The next time I saw Rich Dad, I asked him, do I have to choose between security or freedom? In other words, does that mean I can have one but not the other? Rich Dad laughed after he realised how much thought I'd given this, and he remarked, no, he replied, you don't have to have one or the other, you can have both. You mean I can have both security and freedom? I asked. Sure, he said, I have both. So why did you say that for most people the price of security is personal freedom? I asked. How can you have both when you say most people can only have one? What's the difference? The price, said Rich Dad. I've always said to you that everything has a price. Most people are willing to pay the price for security, but they're not willing to pay the price for freedom. That is why most people have only one of the two. They only have one or the other. And why do you have both security and freedom? Mike asked. He just entered the room and had only heard part of the conversation. Because I paid twice the price, Rich Dad said. I was willing to pay the price for both security and freedom. It's no different than having two cars. Let's say I need a truck, but I also want a sports car. If I want both, I pay twice the price. Most people go through life paying for one or the other, but not both. We pay a price even if we don't pay the price, Rich Dad continued. So there is a price for security and there is a price for freedom. And you paid the price for both, I repeated. What Rich Dad had just said. So I could let the idea sink into my head. Rich Dad nodded his head. Yes. But let me add one more point of clarity about my being willing to pay the price to have both. You will You see, we all pay a price anyway. We pay a price even if we don't pay the price. What, I replied, frowning, shaking my head. Rich Dad now seemed to be speaking in circles. Let me explain, said Rich Dad, yes, gesturing with his hands that we should calm down. Do you remember when I helped the two of you with your science homework a few weeks ago? You were studying Newton's laws. I nodded. Do you remember the law that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction? Again we nodded. Yes, that's how a jet flies through the air, said Mike. That's right. Rich Dad looked at the two of us and said, Newton's laws are universal laws. They apply to everything, not only jet engines. You know, a jet engine propels hot air backward and the jet moves forward. Suspecting we're not really getting this point about everything, Rich Dad continued. Everything, I mean everything, he continued. Do you recall my lessons about financial statements? Do you remember Mike explaining that for every expense there must be an income somewhere else? Now I was beginning to explain what he meant. Newton's universal laws also apply to financial statements. So for every asset there has to be a liability. And for something to be up, something else must be down. And if something is old, something else must be new. Correct, Rich Dad said with a smile. So how does this apply to security and freedom and you're being willing to pay twice the price? Asked Mike. Good question, said Rich Dad. It's important because if you don't pay twice the price, you never get what you want anyway. In other words, if you don't pay twice the price, you do not get what you paid for in the first place. What, I replied, if you don't pay twice the price, you don't get what you paid for. Rich Dad nodded his head and began to explain. People who pay the price only for security may never really feel secure. Like in job security, he stated boldly. A person may have a false sense of security, but they never really feel secure. So even though my dad has what he thinks is a safe, secure job, deep down he never really feels secure. I asked. That's correct, said Rich Dad. Because he's paying only for the action, but not his internal reaction. The harder he works for security or pays the price for security, the more his insecurity grows inside him. Does it have to be insecurity as the reaction, Mike asked. Good question, Rich Dad commented. It could be something else that's reacting. A person could have so much security that the reaction is boredom and then restlessness. They want to move on, but they don't move on because they would give up their security. So that is why I say each of us has different challenges. Each of us is unique. We're unique because we don't react to things in the same ways that others do. Like some people see a snake and panic, and others see a snake and get happy, I added. So what's the point of all this mental gymnastics? I asked. The gymnastics are to make you think. I always want you to remember that everything has a price, and the price is often twice as much as it seems. If you pay for only one side of Newton's law, you may think you have paid the price, but you will not get what you want. Can you give us some examples? I asked. I can give you general ones. As I said, each one of us is unique, said Rich Dad, but as a general rule, always remember there are two sides to each situation. For instance, the best employer has usually started his or her own career as an employee. He or she uses that prior experience as an employee to develop a management style that empowers the employees he or she manages. So a good employer will be honest and treat his or her employees how he or she would like to be treated, I asked. Exactly, Rich Dad nodded. Looking at an extreme example, what do you think it takes to be a good detective? To be a good detective... Now, Rich Dad was driving down the wrong side of the road. Yes, a good detective, Rich Dad continued. To be a good detective, a detective must be first honest, moral, and of the highest integrity. Is that correct? I would hope so, said Mike. But to be good, a detective must also think exactly like a crook, or someone who is immoral, unlawful, and unethical, said Rich Dad. Always remember Newton's law. You cannot be a good detective without also being able to think like a good crook. Mike and I were now nodding. We're finally beginning to understand where Rich Dad was going with this whole lesson. So that is why a person who tries to become rich by being cheap, still winds up in many ways as poor as someone who has no money. Rich Dad continued, and why someone who seeks only security never really feels secure, or someone who seeks low risk investments never feels investing is safe, and someone who is always right eventually winds up wrong. They pay the price for one side of the equation, but fail to pay the full price. They violate a universal law. The price of being cheap. When I hear money gurus saying cut up your credit cards, buy a used car, live below your means, I know they mean well. And for most people their advice is good advice. But as my rich dad said, everything has a price, and the price for becoming rich by being cheap is that you still wind up being cheap, and living life as a rich but cheap person is, in my opinion, a very expensive price to pay. Rich Dad also said the problem is not the credit cards, it's the lack of financial literacy of the person holding the credit card that is the problem. Getting financially literate is part of the price you need to pay to become rich, and that is why so many people do not like the idea of cutting up their credit cards and living below their means. I think most people, given the choice, would rather enjoy this life as rich people who enjoy rich lives, and they can if they are willing to pay the price. So that's a bit of the book, and like I said, I think it's a very, very good book, and definitely worth a read. It's Rich Dad's Guide to Becoming Rich Without Cutting Up Your Credit Cards. If you'd like to find out more about me and what I do, you can basically just click on the link below this video, and also if you click on the link below this video you'll be able to see the book, and you'll be able to go and get that book if you want using the link below. And like I said, my name's Satiris Basakaropoulos, and thanks very much. I look forward to talking to you soon, and if you like this video as well, if you just comment or subscribe to my channel here, that would be great. Thank you.